Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Biblical Perspective for May the 14th, 2022. Going to be looking today at a third horn of the beast. That's from the prophecy of Daniel chapter 7 about an end times empire that's going to encircle the entire globe and is going to control the lives of many, many people. Are some already doing this today with their vision of the future? Absolutely. And as we get to the third horn, remember, these are in no particular order, not trying to rank them, just trying to expose them. Today, one of the most obvious choices of all is going to be Xi Jinping, the president, although we would call him a dictator, of Red China. This one is so obvious, it's almost not worth mentioning, but you need to hear some things about what's going on in China that will shock you if you haven't been paying any attention. And in particular, we're looking at this horn of the beast as one that's already demonstrating those worldwide and out of this world kind of motivations that make us think for certain he's one of the 10 horns. Now, as we start this particular uh, episode today, I want you to grasp just how difficult the world's situation is right now. As you just step back and look at the world, the three major superpowers in the world today, the United States, Russia, and China, are all being led by aging people who may not be making correct decisions. I don't have to describe that for those of you who live in the United States of America, who watch our tottering president stumble through statements almost every week, and almost every week messing up his own history and lying about something. I wonder if it's because he's just, in his own mind, things have gotten so foggy he doesn't remember. He just claimed here this past week that there was no COVID vaccine when he became president. Apparently, it's something he invented. Yet he bragged about getting his shot back in December of 2020 while Donald Trump was still president, a vaccine that came on board because of Operation Warp Speed. And millions had received that vaccination before he was inaugurated. So, in his fuzzy mind, things change over and over. We already know that this leader is weak, and it's scary to think that the man with the nuclear codes in a suitcase is Joe Biden. Well, not only is that a scary thought, but what about those other two major world powers? Well, the other, of course, is Vladimir Putin in Russia, who we know is also an aging leader who's dealing with health problems himself and wants apparently to solidify some things about his own place in history and has started a war in Ukraine, a war that now we claim, if you listen to some of our politicians, to be participating in. Throw into all of this another aging leader, Xi Jinping of China, who will turn 69 years old on June 15th of this year, less than a month from now, and is looking at his own heritage, what he wants to do, what he's already stated that he wants to do and must do while he's still alive and kicking. But yet he, as many have already exposed and you've heard about, has a cerebral aneurysm. He knows that he's not going to have the longest life that some might have in this day and age, hoping for all the medical prowess of China to come to bear to keep him alive, but will he be able to rule for very much longer? So he knows he's got to accomplish some things. As we look at these three world superpowers, this is a scary mixture, a scary recipe for disaster, maybe stumbling into a third world war. Well, as we look at the objectives of Xi Jinping, he makes them quite plain. He has stated them before. And one of those is what he calls a reunification of China, even though the island nation of Taiwan has never been a part of communist China. This is the language they have used to propagandize a future invasion of that island nation. They practiced it just this past week. They have made it plain, so plain that when the Global Times writes about the military exercises and openly warns the United States about thinking about getting involved if that should happen, they don't talk about if China will invade Taiwan. They say when we invade. Now, notice the aspirations of China, even in the title they have given to their Chinese Communist Party newspaper. They call it the Global Times. Why? Because China is the new world's expansionist superpower. They've been doing this for some time. If you want to get a lot of details about this, go back and look at my older video on China, the Dragon Rising, and see how they have been literally buying up the world. Oh, they've got the resources to do that. In the United States of America, they have bought so many companies, so many parcels of land. Just this past week, the big news came out of all places, Oklahoma, where Chinese investors have been buying up land, buying up farmland, finding loopholes in the local laws so that they can acquire these wonderful pieces of property that should be growing food at a time of world food shortage and changing over their whole purpose to either just sit fallow or be used to raise marijuana. Oh yeah, they've got big plans for the United States. We're going to be the pot farm for the world. And how they are even coordinating with drug lords in Mexico about all of this. And we just seem to be wringing our hands thinking, what can we do? What can we do to stop all of this? And as this is taking place, we are not looking at something that's new. My goodness, the Chinese even own the Waldorf Astoria. When COVID-19 broke out, we wondered why no one seemed to be getting the news in time about why this was escaping from China and how quickly it spread. One of the ways it spread the most rapidly was by Chinese business people traveling from China to the United States to check on their holdings. Remember South Dakota, a state which had no COVID until some officials from Smithfield Foods. Now, in case you think that's a good old Virginia company in the United States, no, Smithfield Foods is now a wholly owned subsidiary of China, bought out lock, stock, and barrel by the Chinese some time ago. And so some of those folks that run the company flew into South Dakota to visit one of the packing plants there, brought COVID with them, and suddenly you have an outbreak of COVID that shut down a Smithfield factory, a processing plant. You can't make this stuff up, folks. This is what's happening as China takes over the world one piece at a time, one transaction at a time. You see, through their Belt and Road Initiative, right now, Xi Jinping is buying up the world. Land, companies, ports, seaports, all around the world in strategic places. Why would you be doing this? Well, you'd be doing it because you plan on running the whole show. This is a part of his philosophy that means China has got to be at the head of this beast, and he's got to be the most important horn on the head of this beast of all the nations. And if you think I'm exaggerating that claim, all you have to do is read their own propaganda, their own publications about where they think they are going. Now, as they're encircling Taiwan and writing articles about the coming invasion of Taiwan, they also were saying America will do nothing. Now, why does this seem to be true? Well, because many of our politicians, including our own president, have been bought and paid for, with proceeds coming from China being paid to relatives and paid to the right people to set up this relationship where we seem to turn a blind eye to any of the abuses going on in China. America will do nothing? Yeah, apparently so. And let me get you to think about something else. If China is going to invade Taiwan, Number one, they're watching how the Russia-Ukraine war plays out. But secondly, they realize that Joe Biden is a one-term president. Right now, with some of the lowest popularity of any president in history, Joe Biden, either because of his health or the fact that his own party won't run him for a second term, is not going to be in power after 2024. So, with that being the case, they can't dare wait for another strong leader to come to the helm of power in the United States. That would be tragic for them. They need to move while America is perceived as weak. And our big demonstration of weakness, of course, happened at their back door as we walked away from Afghanistan and handed the Taliban billions of dollars of prime military equipment. Well, China was supporting the Taliban, has been for years, even providing weapons for them, weapons they use to kill Americans. Now, China, with its embassy wide open, full blast in Kabul, is partnering with the Taliban because of all the rare earth minerals you can find within the borders of Afghanistan. You know, those rare earth minerals necessary to build all the electric cars that Joe Biden says that we need. Oh, yes, we are totally dependent right now on other countries for the rare earth minerals necessary to build this brand new fleet of electric vehicles. We're talking about making our military green. Have you heard about that? Yes, so that our military can drive more environmentally friendly weapons of war around the globe as we police it for these other folks. Oh, listen, you can't make this stuff up, folks. China has been watching our weakness grow, if you can say that it grows, or should we say our strength is deteriorating. And they've been watching it with keen eyes, waiting for the right time. And that time has got to come within the next couple of years. They can't wait for a new president to be at the helm in the United States. So, friends, we're right on the edge of something rather big. And what's happening with this? I want to call your attention to a couple of articles in the Epoch Times this past week, and I want you to hang on till the end when you hear how Israel gets into this particular episode. Oh my goodness, you're not going to believe this. But one in particular by Nina Shea talks about how our own State Department is required to give a report to Congress about certain things when it comes to human rights. It's a congressionally mandated annual international human rights report. This year, you would think they're going to say a lot about the wicked organ harvesting going on in Red China. That's part of what Xi has going on from Beijing. While he denies it over here on one side, he's encouraging it on the other. Typical Chinese communist philosophy of how to deal with the world. Well, as we look at that report expecting something good to come out of it, instead, there are only two sentences in the entire report about that, one of which actually says, well, in June, several United Nations experts issued a statement expressing alarm concerning allegations of organ harvesting targeting minorities, including Falun Gong practitioners, Uyghurs, Tibetans, Muslims, and Christians in detention in China. If you remember that prophecy of Daniel 7, it says that the believers, the saints, are going to be handed over to this beast for a while, and the beast will have power over them. That power right now extends into places in China where you are required to give your fingerprint, a blood sample, a heart rate report, some other things that they keep on file so that if they discover a match, say in a key Chinese Communist Party official that happens to need an organ, a heart, a liver, a kidney, or something else, they'll know where to find it and they will come after you. Yes, that's what's going on in China. It's despicable. It is wicked. Yet our government just seems to be hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil about the organ harvesting going on in China. It's wicked, but what's more wicked The fact that China's doing this, or the fact that our own government will not even acknowledge it or speak up about it? In particular, is I want to encourage you to read that article. It's very lengthy and it's got all the necessary details you need to hear in it. But listen to how she closes. She said, this year's report is the first drafted during the Biden administration. The inexplicably muted account of China's organ harvesting seems aimed at mollifying the Chinese Communist Party, which takes great pains to hide the facts about this shocking practice and furiously denies that it continues. But it also may be aimed at forestalling an important congressional initiative. That's the Stop Transplant Abuse Act of 2021. It was introduced by a representative named Chris Smith, a Republican from New Jersey, with bipartisan support in the House and Senate. Yet this administration does not want to poke the dragon. Okay, we've got to be careful there because we are so beholden to them for so many things. In fact, many of the shortages you are dealing with, if you're in the United States of America right now, from medical supplies, even some baby formulas and other things, guess what? We are depending on China to make those things for us and shipping them over here. It's scary. It's just crazy how we are right now held hostage by this giant red dragon as it sits there doing whatever it wants to become the next world superpower. And if you think that we have the ability to poke them and maybe win, I would be careful with that thought. Why? What's happening in the military buildup in China is unprecedented. We're looking at a nation that already has the largest single army in the world, manpower wise, and brags about the fact that in time of war, time of emergency, they could raise a, 200 million man army. Yes, the only time in history when a nation could brag about doing something like that. You'll find that figure in the book of Revelation, a time when there probably weren't that many people on the planet, but yet the Apostle John sees as he looks eastward from Jerusalem, straight across the Euphrates River to the kings of the east, looking straight into China, he sees an army that is numbered for him by an angel, an army of 200 million men. Do you really want to poke that nation with the largest army, soon to have the largest air force and the largest navy, already do in sheer number of ships, will be more sophisticated before long as well, and is building rapidly a nuclear presence that's going to be larger than ours? Did I just make that up? I call your attention to yet a second article, this one by Gordon Chang, in the Epoch Times, pointing out how we are in a similar time to that just before World War II. In fact, he says, friends, it's 1937. You can see the sabers rattling. You can see all the events taking place in the world. We're getting ready for a big conflict. What do we do about it? When he puts all this together, he says the risk of war is much higher than we tend to think. Conflict with today's aggressor is going to be more destructive than it was in the 1930s. You see, we have news that China is building something like 345 missile silos in 3 locations, one of those even being Inner Mongolia. And these silos are clearly built to accommodate the DF-41. The DF-41 has a range of 9,300 miles, which means it can reach any part of the United States. The DF-41 carries 10 warheads. That means one missile up, when it splits over a country where it's targeting, that one becomes 10. This means China could, in about 2 years, he goes on to say, as some experts think, have a bigger arsenal than ours. Remember, here's this 2-year window. It's key. They're getting ready for it. Got to invade Taiwan before the next administration comes. And we've got to be ready to face, just in case, got to be ready to face the United States. But is this all? Folks, it gets even scarier when you look at how the dragon is rising. And you look at how this horn of the beast, Xi, in complete control of this thing, Xi Jinping is now pushing an outer space agenda. Listen to the article as he goes on. In July 2021, China tested a hypersonic glide warhead that literally circled the globe. For those of you who still believe in the flat earth theology, how do you have a weapon that goes out and circles the globe if the earth is flat? Well, that's another story. Listen, it circled the entire world, and it signals that China intends to violate the Outer Space Treaty to which China is a party. It also shows that in hypersonic technology, which was developed by the Americans first, China is now at least a decade ahead of us in fielding a weapon, a hypersonic weapon. What do I mean about their goals when it comes to space? Did you know right now in Chinese publications, they talk about the moon and the Mars and all of our solar system as sovereign Chinese territory? That's right. They've named their Mars rover after the ancient god of fire and war from ancient Chinese history. They've basically said, folks, we not only are going to get there ahead of some of you, Elon Musk, just get ready. The race is really coming and we're going to win it. We're going to show up with weapons. You may be showing up planning on, building greenhouses and to support life. We're going to just show up and take over all that stuff because Mars is now sovereign Chinese territory. I mean, it is called the Red Planet, right? Give me a break. Do these people really have those kind of aspirations? Yes, they do. And they publish it. It's not a secret. As he concludes his article, I want you to listen to this and listen to how the nation of Israel fits in here. He says, so here's a 1930s scenario to consider. The next time China starts a conflict, whether accidentally or on purpose, we might see that China's friends, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Pakistan, either in coordination with China or just taking advantage of the situation, move against their enemies. That would be Ukraine in the case of Russia, South Korea in the case of North Korea, Israel in the case of Iran. That's right. Remember, Iran is biblical Persia. Ezekiel describes this war in Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39. He describes in the latter days, and Ezekiel claims it. He says, this will happen in the last days. This is the way God gave it to him. A war in which Persia, it leads a group of nations to invade Israel. Oh my goodness. Are we seeing the Bible literally unfolding and ancient prophecies being fulfilled right in front of our eyes? Hang on, folks. These next couple of years are so key in where this is going. But he goes on to say, hey, Israel in the case of Iran, India in the case of Pakistan, and even Morocco in the case of Algeria. We could see crises at both ends of the European landmass and in Africa at the same time. This is how world wars start. So you see, as this beast begins to form all around our world in fulfillment of the prophecy found in Daniel 7, recognize that those nations at the head, the seven heads, could that be the G7? The 10 horns, these key leaders from around the world, are some of them going to fight each other? Remember, in the prophecy, a little horn rises up and puts down 3 more. Friends, listen, we're watching biblical prophecy being unveiled right in front of our eyes. And I believe one of the key answers to who those 10 horns might be is in this particular leader, Xi Jinping of Red China. We'll do another one of these next week on our biblical perspective. But remember, because these things are becoming so evident and obvious to us, it means that ultimately, when it seems the world is out of control, God is in control. And the mess that we continue to make of this world will just be the cry from the heart of God's people. Even so, Lord Jesus, come, and he will not let us destroy ourselves, because that's part of his promise. Thanks for joining me today. We'll do this again next week. Each and every day as we wake up in the Word, please like, subscribe, join me in my daily devotional, and then every single Saturday for the next several weeks as we unveil the 10 horns of the beast. God bless you. Keep looking up. Jesus is coming, my friends.